TrueStory Vibes warmly welcomes all our beloved listeners. We're so glad to see you again in our familiar time slot.
Today,
TrueStory Vibes brings you a brand new story, one that we hope will touch your heart and stay with you. As you listen, feel free to leave a comment sharing the quote or moment that left the deepest impression on you. Wishing you a wonderful and meaningful listening experience. Madison Carter jolted upright in bed, her hand clamped over her abdomen as a white-hot bolt of pain seared through her gut. The cool air of her Silver Lake loft felt suddenly hostile against her clammy skin. Midnight on the wall clock glowed 12:07 a.m. She pressed trembling fingers to her phone, but the screen stayed dark with missed notifications. Panic fluttered in her chest like a trapped bird. "Spencer," she whispered hoarsely, voice cracking. "Spencer, please," she dialed again, her pulse hammering. 20 rings. Silence. Hadn't he promised to keep his phone on? Her breath caught. A fresh wave of agony rolled over her, stealing her breath. She gasped, clutching the sheets. The city's distant hum, the soft buzz of traffic on Sunset Boulevard, drifted through the half-open window, but in that moment, Madison felt utterly, achingly alone. Standing wobbly, she swung her legs over the edge of the bed. Dressed only in a thin nightshirt, she pressed one hand to the doorframe for support as another tremor of pain struck. She gritted her teeth and forced herself forward, every step a torturous effort. In the dim hallway, her bare feet met the cool hardwood. She swallowed, bile rising in her throat. "Someone, please," she called, voice shaking louder, echoing down the corridor. "Help me." Next door, a voice answered, calm, concerned. "Madison? It's Lydia. What's wrong?" Lydia Monroe was a hardworking single mom who lived in the apartment next to theirs. Madison had only met her a handful of times, always cordial hellos in the stairwell. Now Lydia's footsteps pounded toward the shared wall, and the door burst open. Madison collapsed into her arms, tears springing unbidden. Lydia's face, framed by warm lamplight, registered shock and immediate action. "You poor thing, let me get you to the hospital." Madison tried to protest, but pain clenched her voice. She held onto Lydia's arm like a lifeline as they navigated the short flight of stairs. Lydia fumbled for her phone. "Uber is taking 10-15 minutes, no good. I'll just call a taxi." Her fingers flew over the screen. Outside, Silver Lake's gentle breeze barely whispered through oak trees lining the street. Lydia half-carried, half-walked Madison to the curb. A yellow cab screeched to a halt, headlights cutting through the night. Lydia opened the back door and eased Madison inside. "Name and address?" the driver asked. Voice clipped. "Westside Women's Hospital," Madison rasped. 1024, Westwood Boulevard. The cab peeled away. Madison leaned back against the seat, eyelids drooping from exhaustion and pain. Lydia sat beside her, murmuring reassurances. "You're doing great. You're going to be okay." Each street sign and passing car seemed surreal, like the city was moving around her in slow motion. Madison's vision blurred slightly. She squeezed her eyes shut, counting heartbeats until they reached the hospital entrance. They arrived in under 10 minutes. Lydia hopped out and supported Madison as they climbed out of the cab. The glass doors parted. Antiseptic brightness washed over them. A security guard guided them to the triage desk. "Name, age." "What's wrong?" Madison answered in short, pained breaths. Lydia stayed by her side, holding her hand. Madison felt a blush of gratitude. She hadn't known Lydia beyond neighborly smiles. And now this stranger had become her champion. Within moments, a nurse led Madison into an exam room. The pain intensified as they wheeled her onto a stretcher. Lydia pressed a brief kiss to Madison's forehead. "I'll wait right outside. Call me if you need anything." Madison nodded, too tired to speak. Lydia gave her one last squeeze before slipping out. The door clicked softly, leaving Madison alone with fluorescent lights and the steady beep of monitors. Dr. Patel, the on-call obstetrician, entered with a calm authority. He introduced himself and began asking questions, When did the pain start? Any bleeding, contractions? Madison answered shakily. The doctor examined her, palpated her belly, and frowned. I want to get an ultrasound right away to check on the baby, he said gently. We'll run some blood tests too. Make sure you're not dehydrated. Madison's heart pounded in her ears as the nurse attached in 4. She felt the sting of the needle, then the relief as fluids flowed in. Her breathing slowed. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Finally, the ultrasound technician glided the wand over Madison's abdomen. Madison watched the grainy black and white shapes on the screen, heart aching with fear. Then there it was. A tiny flicker. A heartbeat. Steady. Strong. Tears welled again, but this time from relief. Dr. Patel's face softened. Baby's heartbeat is strong. Everything looks okay for now, but you're definitely experiencing some contractions. I'd like to admit you for monitoring overnight. Madison exhaled, the tension easing. Lydia returned with a cup of water and a slice of toast. How's my girl? She asked. Madison managed a weak smile. Better, thanks to you. Lydia squeezed her hand. Don't mention it. As nurses wheeled her down the hallway toward a private maternity room, Madison's mind drifted. How lucky she'd been to have Lydia close by. How close she came to facing that terror alone. The night's chaos was already becoming a blur, but in its place was a deep-seated gratitude and a fierce protectiveness for the life growing inside her. The hospital room was white and tranquil, with a single window overlooking the city's midnight glow. Madison settled into bed, Lydia settling into a chair beside her. Madison reached for the remote. The TV clicked on softly. What would you like to watch? Lydia asked. Nothing, just stay, Madison whispered. Lydia nodded. I'll stay as long as you need. Madison closed her eyes, exhaustion finally pulling her toward sleep. In the quiet hum of the hospital, she felt the faint flutter of her baby's movements, a gentle reminder that this was her new reality. A mother fighting for her child, supported by unexpected kindness, in the heart of Los Angeles. The morning sunlight filtered through the sheer curtains of Madison's Silver Lake loft, casting soft stripes across the living room floor. Madison Carter stirred beneath the duvet, every muscle still aching from the night's ordeal. She blinked awake, her mind swimming back to the sterile hospital lights and the steady thump of her baby's heartbeat on the ultrasound monitor. Relief had finally lulled her into a fitful sleep. Her gaze drifted to the doorway where Spencer Reed stood, silhouetted in the soft glow of dawn. He looked sheepish, hair mussed and eyes rimmed with sleeplessness. He held out a single white lily, Madison's favorite. Good morning, he said quietly. How are you feeling? Madison sat up, pressing a hand to her abdomen. A dull throb remained, but inside her, their child stirred, reminding her that hope had triumphed over fear. Better, she managed with a small smile. Thank you for staying by my side. Spencer's features softened. He crossed the room and placed the lily in a glass vase on the coffee table. I meant every word when I said I'd never leave you, he said, his voice earnest. I'm sorry I wasn't there sooner. Madison nodded, but something in the way Spencer flinched as he spoke unearthed a sliver of doubt deep within her. She told herself it was just residual worry from last night's panic. She swung her legs out of bed and padded across the room in socks. Spencer followed, concern etched on his face. He handed her a mug of chamomile tea from the kitchen counter. Madison cradled it, grateful for the warmth. She took a small sip, inhaled the lemony steam. For a moment, peace reigned between them. Then Spencer's phone buzzed sharply on the counter. He reached for it, thumb hovering over the screen. Madison's heart clenched. He glanced at her, hesitation flickering in his eyes, then swiped. Excuse me, Spencer said, stepping back into the kitchen. Madison watched him disappear behind the frosted glass door. The moment felt heavy, charged. She retrieved her own phone from the nightstand, just to see her missed calls from Lydia. But Spencer's abrupt retreat left her unsettled. Minutes later, Spencer reemerged, phone in hand. It's work, he said, voice flat. They need me to join a video call in an hour. He set the phone down and busied himself straightening papers on the coffee table. Madison's unease grew. "You have a call?" she echoed. "At 9 on a Sunday?" Spencer gave a non-committal shrug and glanced away.
"Yes.
"It's project-related. Please don't worry." Madison let it go for now. She sipped her tea, focusing on its soothing warmth. She had weathered enough storms in 26 hours. She didn't have strength for petty jealousy. An hour later, Spencer finally slipped into the bathroom for a shower. Madison tried to relax, leafing through a magazine on the sofa. But her eye kept catching Spencer's leather jacket draped over the arm of the couch. Impulsively, she reached for it and slipped her fingers along the collar. Her breath faltered. A smear of deep crimson smeared the ivory lining, too vivid, too glossy to be mere drift from coffee or jam. Her fingertips brushed the stain. It felt sticky. Her pulse thundered. That shade of red matched the lipstick Spencer had once called too bold when she tried it on for a night out last month. Yet he'd insisted he liked it. Why would that stain be here, so late at night, when he was supposedly at home with her? Madison's world narrowed. She set the jacket down, heart pounding like a drum. The tea in her mug went cold. She swallowed hard, mind racing through every possible explanation. Could a colleague have spilled wine? Had he stopped by another friend's loft? Or was there someone else? Spencer's footsteps on the tile snapped her back. She quickly refolded the jacket and placed it neatly on the armrest. He stepped out, steam curling off his damp hair. She met his gaze, forcing steadiness into her voice. "Spence, there's something on your jacket." He blinked, confusion flickering. "What do you mean?" "Come look." Madison pointed. He stepped forward, his brows knitting as he saw the smear. He pulled at the lining with one hand, frowning. "Oh, shit." He peered closer. "That's odd. You weren't alone last night, were you?" Madison's voice trembled on the edge of accusation. Spencer's eyes darted away. "I told you I was—" "Don't." Madison cut him off softly but firmly. She pressed her palms flat on the table to steady herself. "Not another lie, Spence. Please." His throat bobbed as he swallowed. The silence stretched taut. Finally, he exhaled in a rush. I can explain." Madison's heart sank. She wanted to believe him, but those words, "I can explain," felt like a prelude to more deception. She took a step back. "Then explain." Spencer ran a hand through his damp hair. "I was at Neon Trio last night. Our client, Vivian, she insisted on discussing the campaign in person after her shift. She's really invested in this project, Mads." His voice quavered slightly as he glanced at the jacket. "She was upset, so she hugged me when I left. I guess some of her, well, lipstick transferred." Madison's chest tightened.
"Vivian Lang?"
She forced the name out evenly. "Your new creative director?" He nodded.
"Yes."
"Look, it was nothing. I was there for work. I came straight home, I swear." Madison's mind whirled. Every reassurance he offered sounded rehearsed. But she forced herself to listen, to give him the chance he begged for. "Why didn't you tell me?" she finally asked, voice steadier than she felt. He lowered his gaze. "I didn't want to worry you after last night in the hospital. I thought I could handle it. Just drop the jacket off in the morning." Madison pressed her lips together. Even if that were true, why did he leave that jacket here unwashed? Why wouldn't he set it aside? The details mattered. Spencer reached for her hand. His skin was still damp and cool. "I'm sorry, so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you." Madison let his hand hover near hers, but she didn't take it. Her own tea had gone cold, but she didn't spare it a thought. She focused instead on the smear, a silent accusation demanding justice. "Spence," she said in a low voice, "I love you. I need you to prove to me that this was just business." Spencer's face imploded with remorse. "I will, anything. I'll ask Vivian. I'll have her confirm. I'll get those emails, show you my calendar. Just, please believe me. I don't want to lose you or our baby." Madison stared at him. In that charged moment, She felt the fissure opening between them, widening with every unspoken doubt. She closed her eyes, drawing on the fragility she'd summoned last night in the hospital. "All right," she whispered finally, shoulders slumping. "But right now, I need space." Spencer's eyes filled with pain. "Of course." He nodded, dropped to one knee as if to plead, then let himself stand. Madison turned away and picked up her tea. She took a decisive sip, bitter, unwavering. Whatever truths lay hidden behind that lipstick stain, she would uncover them. Her trust had been wounded, and now survival meant safeguarding herself and her child above all. In the quiet loft, sunlight shimmered through the windows, mocking her turmoil. Madison waited for Spencer to leave the room before she allowed herself to cry, silent. Fierce tears that tasted of betrayal and steel. Today marked a new chapter in her fight, not only to protect her unborn child, but to demand honesty from the man she still desperately wanted to trust. Madison awoke to the rhythmic hum of the highway beneath the rental car. Oregon's Vern Hills rolled by in a blur of pine and fir. She stared out the passenger window, hands folded tightly in her lap, long since drained of tea or hope. Behind the wheel, Spencer Reed pressed the accelerator, determination etched into his jaw. Not a word had passed between them since she stormed out of their Silver Lake loft. Oak Ridge lay another 2 hours ahead, her childhood town, where her parents still lived in a modest craftsman cottage. It felt both familiar and foreign to her now. The last time she'd been back, she was carefree, newly married and blissfully ignorant of betrayal. Today, every mile brought her closer to confronting doubt and heartache. "Spence," she finally said, voice low and measured. "This isn't working." Spencer's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "I know you're hurt."
I'm sorry.
She watched his profile in the side mirror, the way his shoulders tensed at her words. "Sorry doesn't cut it," she whispered. Silence reclaimed the car. The only sound was the tapping of rain on the windshield, Oak Ridge's signature drizzle. Madison traced a rivulet of water as it snaked down the glass. She pictured that smear of crimson lipstick contaminating Spencer's jacket. She pictured Spencer's furtive expression as he tried to explain himself. Something in her had cracked. When they pulled into her parents' gravel driveway, the familiar scent of Douglas fir and damp earth was almost comforting. Her mother's rose bushes, still in stubborn bloom, lined the front walk. Madison exhaled a shaky breath and swung open her door. The cottage door creaked as she pulled it closed behind her. Her mother, Helen Carter, emerged from the kitchen, apron dusted with flour. "Maddie," she exclaimed, eyebrows arching. "You rang?" Madison forced a small, brittle smile. Mum." Her mother's face registered concern. Beside her, Robert Carter set down a teacup in his hand. Flour and a whisk clattering onto the counter. He'd been tinkering with sourdough, his Saturday ritual. "You look tired," he observed gently. "And that rain isn't helping." Madison's throat caught. She closed her eyes for a moment, leaning into their steady presence. "I need space," she said finally. Helen set the flour jar aside and embraced her daughter. "Of course, sweetheart. You're home now." Spencer climbed out of the car with 2 overnight bags. Madison turned away slightly, fearing her resolve might crumble at the sight of him. Helen watched his arrival and pressed a hand to her chest. She and Robert exchanged a silent glance of mutual concern for their daughter. Inside, Helen bustled toward the pantry. "There." "Or something stronger," she offered. Madison accepted a mug of herbal infusion. Spencer declined. He lingered in the doorway, awkward energy radiating from him. Finally, Madison took a steadying breath. "Spence, I didn't come here to argue," she began. "I came for clarity. I need to figure out what's real between us." Spencer's gaze fell to his shoes. "I understand." "Yesterday," she continued, "the lipstick stain, it broke something in me. I can't pretend it was just business. I saw how you reacted when I confronted you. I can't unsee those moments of panic in your eyes." Spencer's throat bobbed, he nodded. "I panicked because I knew I'd hurt you. And maybe I was ashamed." Madison waited, but he didn't add more. She turned to her parents. "I'll take their guest room," she said, voice firmer than she felt. Helen guided her toward the back bedroom, draping a soft throw blanket over the bed. "You rest," her mother said softly. Upstairs, Madison sank onto the edge of the bed. She pressed her palms into her eyes. Outside, rain tracked down the pane. She let the helpless tears fall. After a while, she placed a hand on her pregnant belly. Her baby stirred, a reminder that her decisions now mattered twice over. Downstairs, Spencer lingered in the living room. Robert reclined in an armchair, watching him. "Son," Robert said quietly, "you love my daughter. If that's true, you need to prove it." Spencer ran a hand through his hair. "I will. I'm going to do anything to earn back her trust." Robert nodded slowly. Actions, not words. Later that afternoon, Madison joined her parents in the kitchen. Helen set a plate of her famous chicken pot pie before her. "You haven't eaten since you left home," she murmured. Madison's appetite was muted, but she nibbled at the crust. Spencer hovered awkwardly. After a long pause, Madison spoke. "I don't know if I can ever fully trust you again." Spencer lowered himself to the table. "I know,
And you shouldn't right now.
but I want to try for you, for my child. Whatever you need, I'll do. Background checks. Meeting your timelines. I'll be transparent." Madison swallowed a bite of savory filling. "You led me to believe it was nothing, then left that jacket out. You kept Vivian's involvement secret until I found evidence." "I screwed up," he admitted. "And I'm sorry I lied by omission. But I never stopped loving you." Her father, seated across from her, finally spoke. "Madison, do you love him?" She paused, eyes locked on Spencer. She saw the earnestness in his expression. She remembered their wedding vows, the late-night talks, the laughter. But she also saw the ripple of betrayal. "I do," Madison said in a quiet rush. "But love isn't always enough." Robert stood and quietly hugged Spencer's shoulder. "Then show her." After dinner, Spencer and Madison took a walk through her childhood neighborhood. The streets were calm. Porch lights glowed in melodious pockets of warmth. Madison's heart pounded as they approached a bench by the creek, a place where she and Spencer once shared ice cream. Spencer stopped. "Maddie, look at me." She met his eyes in the dim lamplight. She felt the strain in her shoulders, the ache in her chest. Yet beneath it all was a flicker of hope. "I've arranged to have that jacket professionally cleaned," he said, holding up a photo on his phone of the service. "And I told Vivian to transfer all meeting notes to email, so everything's documented. I'm walking away from that project, if it means saving us." Madison studied him. His voice wavered, but his gaze was steady. She closed a small distance between them. "You knew I'd need more than words." He nodded. "I'm ready to prove every day." She exhaled slowly, letting the drizzle wash over her face. The creek gurgled gently beside them. "One day at a time," she whispered. He reached out and brushed a strand of hair from her forehead.
Yes.
"One day at a time." They stood in silence, raindrops dotting their shoulders. Madison realized that Oak Ridge's quiet streets might offer her the space she needed. But they also offered a chance for rebirth, a chance to rebuild trust brick by brick, rainstorm by rainstorm. In the distance, the lights of her parents' cottage beckoned, promising safety and the unwavering support of family. Madison's fingers slid into Spencer's, tentative but resolving. As they walked back toward the warmth of home, she felt the first stirrings of a new kind of hope, one tempered by betrayal but strengthened by the hard work of forgiveness. Outside the front porch, Lydia's car passed by on its way to a friend's house, unaware that the woman she'd saved was on the cusp of making perhaps the toughest decision of her life. Madison stepped through the door, shoulders still shivering from the drizzle, but with a resolve that no storm could wash away. Madison woke suddenly before dawn to the persistent buzz of her phone on the nightstand. The clock read 4:17 a.m. in her parents' guest room. Groggy, she rolled over and squinted at the screen. An unknown number, then another, then a third. She frowned. Spam calls? She hit silence, but her finger paused over the last notification, a message preview from V. Lang. Been missing you. Her heart stuttered. V. Lang Vivian, Spencer's new creative director. He'd claimed their meetup was strictly professional. Yet here she was in Oak Ridge, receiving intimate texts from the very woman he said he'd left at Neon Trio. Madison shook off the lingering haze of sleep and threw back the covers. She grabbed her phone and tapped into the Messages app. There it was, a single unread text from Vivian. Vivian, Spencer hasn't called you yet, has he? I thought you two were setting aside space for each other. Vivian, I can't wait to see you again tonight. Madison's stomach twisted. Those words carried the weight of betrayal, like a drop of ink seeping into clear water. She pressed her hand to her chest, breath catching. Hours ago, she and Spencer had pledged fidelity. He promised transparency. Yet this message, which Vivian clearly sent to Spencer's phone, revealed an emotional intimacy that had no place in Madison's marriage. She pressed her fingers to her temples, willing the images of last night's pale moonlight to fade in favor of clarity. No, she couldn't pretend this was just a misunderstanding. Downstairs, Spencer slept on the couch in the living room, face turned away toward the flickering glow of the fireplace. Madison crept past the doorway, phone clutched to her chest. She paused in the kitchen, heart racing, and texted Lydia. Madison, please call me ASAP. I need you. Within seconds, Lydia replied, but Madison couldn't read it until she confronted Spencer. Determined, she marched into the living room. Spencer stirred as she flicked on the overhead light. He squinted against the glare, jaw tightening in concern. Maddie, are you all right? Madison held up her phone. Who is Vivian Lang? His eyes widened, and he sat up, massaging the back of his neck. What do you mean? Without a word, Madison unlocked her phone and swiped to the text thread. Spencer's face paled as he read Vivian's messages, blinking on the screen. How long has she been texting you like this? Madison's voice was calm, but frosty. Spencer ran a hand through his hair. She started after our first strategy meeting in Silver Lake. I didn't mean for it to go beyond work. Madison repeated, her voice hollow. Spence, this isn't just a text about budgets or brainstorming. She's flirting, asking you to meet tonight. There's emotional depth here, not just work. Spencer's eyes darted to the clock, 4:23 a.m. He glanced at Madison's expression, her eyes burning with both hurt and resolve.
Made, isueri.
I've been ignoring her advances. I told her the message was meant for me, not for us. I told her to back off. Madison's lip curled. And yet you didn't show me those messages. You hid them from me. She stepped closer, voice trembling with a mixture of anger and heartbreak. You promised transparency. Spencer's shoulders slumped. I know. I'm sorry. Sorry, she echoed. Sorry doesn't cut it. Not this time. He swallowed. Please, let me explain in the morning. I can call her now and tell her to leave us alone. I'll show you every message, every email. I'll prove that I'm not doing anything wrong. Madison shook her head. Call her now. Let's see what she says to your voice. Spencer exhaled sharply and fumbled for his phone. He dialed Vivian's number, pacing the length of the living room. Madison stood silent, arms crossed.
Listening.
After 2 rings, a sultry voice answered. Hello. Spencer's voice was clipped. Viv, we need to talk. Madison hovered by the doorway, eyes narrowed. She saw Spencer's face contort from defensiveness to panic. He ran a hand through his damp hair, glanced at Madison's unmoving figure, then at the fireplace's embers. Why are you texting me like that at 4 a.m.? We agreed we'd focus on work and nothing else. There was a pause. Then Vivian's voice, casual, intimate. I miss you, Spencer. I thought we had something. Spencer cut in. No. This ends now. I'm married. I love my wife. Don't contact me again. Vivian sounded deflated. Whatever you say. She hung up. Spencer held his breath for a moment, then rounded on Madison.
See?
I ended it. I blocked her. Madison's heart pounded, but she forced herself to ask, "And you're 100% sure there's nothing else? No secret meetings? No other texts you haven't shown me?" Spencer stared at her, pain and remorse warring in his eyes. "I swear. She pushed. But it was always you. And the baby first." Madison studied his face. But what of the nights she lay alone, waiting for him to return? What of the lies by omission? "I can't do this," she whispered. "I can't keep living in doubt." Spencer took a tentative step forward. "Then come back home with me. We'll go through every message together. I'll delete anything that isn't work-related. I'll go to therapy, whatever it takes." Madison felt a pang of longing, but she backed away. "I need time," she said. "I need to see the distance you can put between you and her. Not just words." Spencer's face crumpled.
Please.
"Let me prove it." "It's not up to me," Madison replied, tears brimming as she turned and fled the living room. She grabbed her coat and keys from the hall tree. Spencer called after her, but she slipped out the door, rain splattering her face. She jogged to the end of the driveway, cell pressed to her ear. She saw Lydia's name flash on the screen. Relief warmed her chest. Madison tapped answer. "Hey," she said, voice shaking. "I'm outside Donovan's." Lydia's calm voice came. "What's going on? Texts? Calls? Should I be on a plane?" Madison pulled her coat tighter. "I don't know. Just get here. I don't want to handle this alone. Park at the front driveway. I'll be there in 10. Madison ended the call and gazed at the misty hills. In the distance, the silhouette of Oak Ridge's water tower cut into the gray sky. Her reflection in the windshield blurred. She pressed her hand to her swollen belly. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about protecting the life growing inside her. As she trudged back toward the cottage, lit warmly by inside lamps, Madison resolved to take control. Vivian's texts were a glaring alarm, proof that Spencer's promises could crumble as easily as morning mist. But Madison had a plan now. She would insist on accountability and distance. If Spencer truly loved her and their child, he would rise to the challenge. Inside, Spencer paced the living room, phone in hand, anguish etched into every movement. He watched the front door, willing Madison to stay. But he knew he'd burned that bridge the moment he hid the texts. Now only tangible proof, emails, logs, a clear boundary with Vivian could build it anew. Back in her room, Madison sank onto the bed and let the sobs come, soft, racking breaths as she confronted the fallout of secrets and seduction. Outside, rain pattered against the roof. But inside, Madison's grief and determination clashed, forging a new resolve. She would stand guard over her heart, her trust earned rather than given, and her future reclaimed, one unwavering step at a time. Madison stared at the stacks of printed messages, emails, and photos spread across her parents' Oak Ridge guest room desk, each piece of evidence a testament to Spencer's deception. The crimson smear of lipstick on his leather jacket, the flirtatious texts from Vivian Lang at 2:30 a.m., the photos from Neon Trio showing Vivian's arm draped possessively around his waist, all of it formed an irrefutable narrative. Her pulse pounded as she rifled through the documents, each flick of the page reinforcing the truth she had tried to ignore for weeks. In the early morning light, she took a deep breath and reached for her laptop. With trembling fingers, she opened a blank divorce petition form, her vision blurring slightly from both exhaustion and emotion. Carefully, she began filling in her name, Madison Carter, then Spencer's full legal name. Under grounds for divorce, she typed irreconcilable differences but added a detailed statement. Petitioner has concrete evidence of ongoing emotional infidelity and deceptive behavior by respondent, which has irreversibly damaged the marital relationship and threatens the welfare of the unborn child. Later that day, Madison met with Clara Henderson at the Henderson and Myers family law office in Eugene. Clara, a seasoned attorney with kindness in her eyes, affirmed Madison's decision. Emotional infidelity. particularly when concealed, can constitute a significant breach of marital trust, Clara explained. The text messages, emails, photographs, and physical evidence you've gathered establish a clear pattern. We'll file for sole legal and physical custody of your child, and will request spousal support given the hardships you've endured. Madison listened intently, her resolve hardening. She signed the retainer agreement and watched as Clara photocopied every document. The weight in her chest lightened, replaced by a fierce determination to reclaim her life and protect her baby from further harm. The next morning, Madison drove her father's old Subaru down muddy gravel to the Lane County Family Court. The lobby buzzed with murmured conversations and the distant clang of a gavel. She clutched the sealed envelope containing her divorce petition and evidence and waited in line at the clerk's window. When her name was called, she handed over the documents. The clerk stamped them with a sharp, echoing thud and slid a copy back. Madison Carter versus Spencer Reed. Spencer would have 30 days to respond. On her way home, Madison felt a strange mix of relief and sorrow. Filing those papers had been one of the hardest things she'd ever done, yet it also felt like the first step toward freedom. At the Carter cottage, her mother, Helen, wrapped her in a gentle embrace. "You did the right thing, sweetheart," she whispered. "We'll stand by you every step of the way." That evening, Madison summoned the courage to serve Spencer the petition in person. She parked several blocks from his Silver Lake loft and walked briskly through damp streets, envelope in hand. When Spencer opened his door, hair mussed, eyes sleep-rimmed, his expression shifted from surprise to panic as she held the envelope out to him. "A divorce petition," she said quietly. "I filed today." He stared, pale under the porch light. "Madison, why?" he whispered. She met his gaze steadily. "Because I can't live in doubt or betrayal anymore. I have to protect myself and our child." Without another word, she turned and walked away, her heels clicking on the pavement. Back home, Madison placed the stamped receipt on her bedside table. She crawled into bed, the crisp sheets cool against her skin. Her last thought before sleep claimed her was a promise whispered into the quiet. "I will build a life founded on honesty and love, for both of us." The storm of the past weeks had passed its fiercest gale. Now she would chart a new course, unafraid and unburdened, guided by the unwavering determination of a mother's love. The late afternoon sky over Westside Women's Hospital was turning the color of bruised grape when Madison returned for her daily checkup. She and Dr. Harrison Blake, her longtime friend and OB-GYN, had settled into the familiar routine. He examined her, monitored the baby's heartbeat, steady, strong, and reassured her that everything was progressing normally. Outside the exam room, Spencer waited with their newborn son, Riley, swaddled in a soft gray blanket. He cooed at the baby, gently bouncing him on his knee. Madison felt a small thrill of warmth. This moment was precious. A fragile truce after so much turmoil. She stepped into the hallway, smoothing her cardigan, ready to head home to Oak Ridge once more. Then sirens. Sharp, insistent, slicing through the hospital's calm. Spencer stiffened, eyes wide. A nurse dashed past them, phone pressed to her ear, glancing anxiously toward the nearest stairwell. "Code Silver." She called over her shoulder, disappearing around the corner. Madison's pulse spiked. Code Silver at a women's hospital typically signaled an infant abduction. Her throat constricted. "Riley," she began, eyes darting to Spencer. He stood, blanket forgotten, and scooped Riley to his chest. "Stay here," he ordered, already moving. Madison raced after him. Hallway lights blurred as she followed Spencer to the elevator bank. Hospital staff and security officers converged, voices urgent. At the end of the corridor, Dr. Blake appeared, scrub coat flapping. "Madison," he said, voice low but urgent. "Your son's room. There's been a breach." They sprinted into the neonatal unit. Alarms were now blaring. Nurses were ushering parents away from the doors. Spencer pushed through a knot of onlookers to the nurse's station. "Where is he?" he demanded. A security guard, eyes grim, answered. Vivian Lang drove a maintenance cart through the EMT exit. She bypassed ID checks and headed upstairs with the baby. Madison's heart froze. Vivian, spurned, desperate Vivian, had threatened to make Spencer feel her pain. He stormed toward the stairwell. Riley held tight. Madison followed, Dr. Blake at her side. They climbed 2 flights, security flanking them fast. On the rooftop, wind whipped at their clothes. The city spread below in a mosaic of lights and shadows. And there she was, Vivian, silhouette backlit by the sky, standing at the edge with Riley cradled in her arms. She wore Vivian's trademark power blue blouse, hair wild in the breeze, eyes wide in a madness that chilled Madison's blood. "Give me back my baby," Spencer shouted as he emerged behind Dr. Blake. Vivian's grip on Riley tightened. "No," Vivian whispered, voice ragged. "He's mine now. You stole me away, used me for my ideas, then left me alone. You made me lose what mattered. Now you'll feel my pain." She took a step closer to the edge. Riley stirred, the blanket slipping, revealing his tiny form. Madison's stomach lurched. "Put him down," Dr. Blake said calmly, stepping forward. "You're scaring him." He held up his hands in a placating gesture. Vivian's eyes darted to the physician, once a comforting fixture for Madison, now a living shield between her and her son.
No.
"She can't have him," Vivian hissed at Spencer, then turned back to Blake. "You promised you'd help me deliver my baby, but you side with her." She edged nearer to the railing. Riley pressed against her chest. Madison's throat tightened. Spencer advanced, voice hoarse. "Viv, step back.
This isn't you."
His words trembled between anger and desperation. Vivian rocked them both, lips curling. "My baby died," she said softly. Madison's breath caught. She recalled the day Vivian collapsed in the lobby, grief radiating off her in waves. "And you weren't there to comfort me, Spencer. You left me to face it alone. Now you feel it." She clenched Riley tighter. Dr. Blake's voice was steady. "No one here wants to hurt you. But this child is innocent. Please, for his safety, come away from the edge." Vivian rocked on her heels. "If I go, he dies." She forced Spencer's gaze, as if daring him to cross her. For an agonizing moment, Spencer froze. Then he shook his head.
"No," he said.
"You won't hurt him." He inched forward, hands open. Vivian trembled, tears mixing with chill rain. The baby whimpered. Madison wanted to hurl herself forward, yank the child free.
"But Dr.
Blake placed a hand on Madison's shoulder. "It's okay," he said quietly. "Watch for my lead." Vivian took another step back, closer to the railing. Spencer's voice cracked.
"I'm sorry, Viv."
He reached out, but Vivian backed away from him, sudden fear flickering in her eyes. A rooftop door banged behind them. Security officers poured out, forming a human barricade. One held a rolled net. The tension coiled in the air like a spring. At that moment, Madison felt the wind gust stronger. Vivian lost her footing, at least it seemed so, leaning over the railing with Riley still clutched to her chest. Everything slowed. Spencer lunged forward. The net bobbed in an officer's hands. Dr. Blake sprinted to the edge, yelling, "I'll catch him." Others moved in to flank Vivian. Madison pressed her hands to her mouth, terror eclipsing her heart. Vivian's foot slipped against the wet concrete. Time snapped back as she teetered. Riley clutched to her chest. Spencer reached her just as she pitched forward. In one fluid, desperate motion, Spencer's arms closed around her and the baby. He lurched backward, pulling Vivian away from the railing. The security officers lunged, wrestling Vivian to the ground as Spencer staggered. Riley wrapped in Spencer's arms. Madison ran forward, tears streaming. Spencer collapsed to his knees, rocking Riley to his chest. "Oh my God, Riley's okay," he gasped, voice cracking.
"Dr.
Blake knelt beside Spencer, relieved. "He's fine, just shaken." Vivian's unconscious. He motioned to the officers tying Vivian's wrists. "Call EMT for her and a paramedic to check the baby." Madison sank to her knees beside them, pressing a hand to Riley's back. The baby let out a single tremulous cry, then snuggled quietly into Spencer's arms. Spencer's fingers trembled as he stroked Riley's head. Tears ran down Madison's cheeks, relief, gratitude, and exhaustion all battered together. Spencer looked up at her. I'm so sorry." His voice broke, eyes haunted. Madison put her hand on his cheek. "It's over," she whispered. "He's safe." She looked at their son, then at Vivian, now crumpled and guarded by hospital security. "Vivian needs help," Madison added, voice trembling. "But Riley is our priority." Security guided Vivian away, and a med team arrived to tend to her. Spencer stood, cradling Riley, eyes hollow with shock. Madison leaned into Spencer, her son safe in his arms. Beneath the city's bruised purple sky, she realized how close she'd come to losing everything. She met Spencer's gaze. "We need to make a choice," she said quietly. "For Riley's sake." He nodded, tears brimming as he held their son tighter. They stepped back from the railing, leaving behind the final, shattering proof of Vivian's desperation. On the rooftop, amidst flashing lights and rushing footsteps, Madison knew the next chapter of their lives would be written with honesty, boundaries, and an unwavering commitment to protect their child, no matter the cost. The courtroom was silent save for the gentle scuff of shoes on hardwood floors and the low hum of the air conditioning. Madison sat in the front row of the small family law courtroom, Riley asleep in her arms, a soft blanket tucked around him. Across the aisle, Spencer Reed shifted uneasily, Vivian laying at his side, pale, gaunt, anxiety etched into her features. Judge Martinez peered over her glasses at the assembled parties. "Madison Carter," she began, voice measured. "Spencer Reed, you've both presented evidence and testimony. I find the marriage irretrievably broken. The divorce decree is granted." Madison felt a weight lift from her chest. She met the judge's gaze, then lowered her eyes, blinking back tears as Spencer signed the final page. His pen scratched across the paper. "Spencer Reed, respondent." He slid the document forward. The clerk stamped it, and the silence broke. Madison rose, her fingers curling protectively around Riley. Her steps were deliberate as she approached the bench. Judge Martinez offered a small nod. "Madison," she said, "sole legal custody of Riley, with Spencer to have liberal visitation under court supervision. Vivian Lang's involvement is recognized as non-marital. Mr. Reed is ordered to assist with child support. Court is adjourned." A muted "thank you" escaped Madison's lips as she retrieved her son. Relief and sorrow swirled in her heart, but she forced herself to stand tall. Outside the courtroom, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows through tall windows. Spencer approached her hesitantly, Vivian trailing behind. "Madison," he began, voice thick, "I'm sorry it had to end this way." Madison offered him a measured nod. "I did what I had to do for Riley." Spencer's throat bobbed. He looked at Vivian. She stood with her arms crossed, trembling, tears spilling down her cheeks. Spencer turned back to Madison. "I can't take Riley back to Silver Lake," he said quietly. "But I want to do right by him." Madison met his eyes. "You'll have to move out of the loft," she said. "And any visits must be supervised at first." He exhaled, nodding. "I understand." Behind him, Vivian's posture slumped. Spencer put an arm around her shoulder. Not intimately, but protectively. She let her head rest against his arm, a vulnerable figure in designer scrubs turned destitute. As Madison wheeled Riley's stroller down the courthouse steps, her parents greeted her in the parking lot. Helen Carter enveloped her daughter in a fierce hug. "My brave girl," she whispered. Robert clapped Spencer lightly on the back, then turned to Vivian. "Can we help you, Vivian?" Vivian lifted her eyes, brimming with shame. I don't know where to go," she admitted. "I have nowhere else." Robert offered a gentle smile. "Our home is open if you truly want to rebuild your life." Vivian nodded, uncertainty etched on her face. Madison lingered by the car. Spencer approached her, hands in pockets. "Madison," he said, voice halting, I'm moving back to the city in 2 days. Vivian and I will be staying in the small apartment above my parents' house. That way, I can visit Riley here in Oak Ridge under court supervision. I'll transfer child support on the 1st of every month. Madison absorbed the information. Her heart fluttered. This arrangement still felt fragile. Make sure you follow through, she replied evenly. For Riley's sake. Spencer nodded, eyes steady. I will. On the drive home, Madison navigated winding backroads flanked by fir trees. Riley slept peacefully, oblivious to the legal and emotional upheaval that had shaped his afternoon. Madison felt a bittersweet pride. She'd protected her son, yet a part of her mourned the marriage she once cherished. The first week after the divorce decree was a delicate dance of new routines. Madison returned to the Carter cottage in Oak Ridge, where her parents seamlessly resumed their roles as co-parents, making oatmeal for Riley, rocking him at dawn, and taking shifts through the night. Madison slipped back into her old home office to work remotely as an accountant for a Portland firm. The extra income was vital. She now carried the full responsibility of child support, rent, and living expenses on her own. Meanwhile, Spencer and Vivian moved into his parents' bungalow in Silver Lake, the kind with a wraparound porch and bougainvillea trailing along the fence. Spencer's parents, Wayne and Laurel Reed, had offered to have him and Vivian in for as long as they needed. Wayne, a retired firefighter, made a point of installing security cameras and a baby gate to ensure no easy lapses in supervision during Spencer's visits with Riley. Laurel, a schoolteacher, baked Spencer's favorite chocolate chip cookies and dropped them off at Madison's cottage, no questions asked. At first, Spencer's Sunday visit with Riley was supervised by Wayne. Riley, already a few months old, greeted his father with gurgling happiness. "Hey, buddy," Spencer said, arms wide. He gently scooped Riley from Wayne's outstretched hands. Madison watched from the rocking chair, arms folded loosely. She observed Spencer's every move, the way he cradled Riley's head, how he hummed softly to calm him. He did everything right. But she waited for the slip, the unexplained text, the secret detour. It never came. Vivian, too, faced her own reckoning. She attended therapy sessions at a community mental health clinic in Silver Lake, grappling with grief over her stillborn baby and the toxic repercussions of her coping mechanisms. Spencer accompanied her to a few sessions, though he maintained a respectful distance from Madison's world. Madison heard through mutual friends that Vivian had cut off all contact with Spencer's work emails, an early sign of her commitment to recovery. Madison's daily life found rhythm. Morning feedings with oatmeal and mashed banana, midday conference calls with Portland headquarters, afternoon walks with Riley in the rain-kissed woods behind her childhood home. Helen's vegetable garden buzzed with bees, and Robert's sourdough starter bubbled on the kitchen counter. These simple routines grounded Madison, reminding her of what truly mattered. By the end of the first month, Madison sensed a change in herself. The raw edges of her pain had softened into resolve. She still missed the life she once envisioned: family dinners, shared laughter in the loft, anticipation of a growing brood. But she also recognized the gift of her new autonomy. She could face a work deadline without worrying if Spencer had been faithful. Tuck Riley in at night without the fear of his safety being compromised. Spencer's visits became less supervised as he proved reliable. Wayne and Laurel noted that Spencer always arrived on time, never lingered beyond the allotted hour, and followed every rule. Madison, trusting this progress, invited Spencer to take Riley for walks in her parents' backyard. On those afternoons, she and Helen sorted laundry, ready with a snack for her son's return. Spencer, dedicated and tender, sometimes lingered on the porch, talking quietly with Madison about mundane topics, weather, Riley's latest milestone, Helen's perfect rhubarb pie recipe. Vivian, having found a support group for grieving mothers, began volunteering at the hospital where she had once worked. She organized memory circles for families who'd lost infants and donated her paychecks to a neonatal charity. Rumor in Silver Lake was that Vivian had reconciled with her own parents, moving back into her childhood home to be closer to them. She maintained a strictly professional distance from Spencer at work, focusing on her duties and mentoring junior designers.
On a crisp autumn afternoon, Spencer approached Madison at her parents' porch with 2 steaming mugs of hot cider. Riley babbled from his car seat. "Thought you might like a break," Spencer said,
handing Madison a cup. She accepted it, inhaling the spicy steam. "Thanks," she murmured. They watched as Riley grabbed at fallen leaves in the yard. For the first time since the crisis, Madison felt genuine ease, no lurking suspicion, only cautious trust. Spencer offered her a small smile. "I know I can't erase the past," he said softly, "but I hope, eventually, we can be friends for Riley." Madison glanced at him, measuring his sincerity. She sipped her cider, then met his gaze. "Maybe. Time will tell." By the 6th week, Madison had settled into a rhythm that felt sustainable. She found strength in her routine: weekend brunches at Oak Ridge's farmers market, evenings thundering away in front of her laptop for work deadlines, nightly lullabies sung softly to Riley. She enrolled him in a local parent-baby music class, where he giggled at the ukulele strums and library storytime. Madison even joined a weekly yoga session for new moms, discovering muscles she never knew she had. Spencer, too, embraced his role as co-parent. He respectfully texted Madison each morning and evening with updates. "Riley slept 8 hours straight last night. We went for a stroller walk today." He loved the ducks at the pond. His messages were concise, purposeful, free of hidden agendas. When Riley reached a milestone, rolling over for the first time, Spencer video called Madison so they could share the joy in real time. Vivian occasionally stopped by Oak Ridge's veterinary clinic where Madison's childhood friend worked. She'd bring pastries for the staff and quietly volunteer her design skills to refresh the waiting room. Word reached Madison that Vivian was speaking at a bereavement conference next month, sharing her story to help other grieving parents. Madison felt a pang of complicated sympathy. Vivian had caused so much pain, yet had also endured her own unimaginable loss. She realized that healing, for everyone involved, was an ongoing process. 6 months after the abusive weight of betrayal first shattered her world, Madison found herself sitting on the front porch of her parents' cottage, Riley playing in the yard with his grandparents, keeping watch. The air was crisp with early winter's promise, and a faint scent of pine drifted through. She sipped her coffee and reflected on the journey that had brought her here. Her life was far from perfect. She worked 2 days a week from home, occasionally felt pangs of loneliness, and still battled the echo of Vivian's desperate act. But she also felt profound gratitude for her parents' steadfast support, for Dr. Blake's unwavering friendship, for Riley's bright smiles, and yes, even for the lessons learned about boundaries, honesty, and self-respect. Across the yard, Spencer and Riley strolled, Riley's laughter ringing out as he pointed to a squirrel scurrying up an oak. Spencer waved, careful to maintain his distance. Madison returned the wave, warmly but firmly. Their relationship had transformed from marriage to co-parenting partnership, built on new rules, mutual respect, and clear lines. As Madison stood to bring Riley in for lunch, she brushed her palm against the torched wood of the porch railing. This home, this life, was hers to shape now. The pain of the past, the trauma of betrayal, and the agony of that rooftop crisis had forged her into someone stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. She would carry those scars, but they no longer defined her destiny. She scooped Riley into her arms, planting a kiss on his forehead. "Time for grilled cheese," she told him, hearing his delighted babble. Inside, her parents bustled in the kitchen. In the distance, the Reed bungalow stood silent under gray skies, Spencer's new household waiting patiently for their next scheduled visit. Madison stepped through the doorway, heart steady, eyes bright. Her life was her own again, anchored by love, resilience, and the unwavering promise that no matter what storms might come, she and Riley would weather them together, stronger every day. The crisp morning light filtered through the maples lining Oak Ridge Lane as Madison Carter fastened Riley's coat and settled him into his stroller, her heart brimming with a hard-won serenity. She remembered the sharp panic of that first midnight contraction, the sting of discovering Spencer's hidden messages, and the terror of Vivian's rooftop crisis that nearly tore everything apart. From those darkest hours, she had unearthed profound truths, that true fidelity is not cheating, but the daily, intentional practice of transparency. That communication is the bridge over suspicion, built by shared calendars, open calendars, and vulnerability, and that family happiness blossoms only when compassion and mutual respect are its roots, even with those who have wounded us. As Riley reached for a leaf drifting past, Madison reflected on the months since the divorce decree. She and Spencer had crafted a co-parenting partnership defined by honesty. He texted her each morning, sharing Riley's feeding schedule and sleep patterns. She emailed him updates on doctor visits and developmental milestones. No question went unanswered. No concern went unvoiced. Through weekly check-ins, they had learned to navigate disagreements calmly, prioritizing their son's well-being above all. In so doing, they rebuilt trust not on empty promises but on tangible actions. These new routines taught Madison that communication, far from being a mere exchange of words, is an expression of respect. She recalled the bitterness she once felt when Spencer left his office door closed during their final argument. That small barrier had felt like a wall between them. Now, every barrier was dismantled. Email archives accessible, phone lines open, visitation schedules transparent. This daily practice of honesty transformed their fractured relationship into a stable alliance for Riley's sake. Beyond fidelity and communication, Madison discovered that family extends beyond blood relations. The Carter cottage had become Riley's sanctuary. Mornings with grandfather Robert's sourdough pancakes, afternoons with grandmother Helen's storytelling in the sunlit den, and evenings spent in laughter echoing through the pine-scented halls. From the Reeds came unwavering reliability. Wayne Reed supervising Spencer's carefully scheduled visits, Laurel Reed dropping off homemade cookies for Riley's snack time. And even Vivian, once the catalyst for heartache, volunteering at the hospital neonatal unit, channeling her own grief into supporting new parents who had lost much. In this collective embrace, Madison found that compassion can weave the most unexpected bonds, knitting strangers into an extended family united by empathy. Resilience, she realized, is forged in adversity's crucible. The panic that seized her in the hospital hallway taught her the power of acting swiftly to protect those we love. Spencer's moment of shame when confronted with Vivian's texts reminded her that even good people can falter, but that accountability and sincere remorse are the first steps toward redemption. Vivian's rooftop desperation showcased the depths of human despair but also revealed the strength that emerges when community refuses to stand by. That night, as Spencer lunged forward to save Riley, Madison's faith in collective action, security guards, Dr. Blake, and Spencer himself, cemented her belief that no one faces crisis alone. Driving home later that afternoon, Madison watched Riley's eyelids flutter behind the windshield's soft glare. Every milestone he reached underscored her resolve to build a life founded on the lessons learned, fidelity as deliberate transparency, communication as the cornerstone of respect, and family as the tapestry woven by threads of compassion, even for those who have erred. She whispered to him, "Mama will always protect you," feeling the weight and promise of those words settle warmly in her chest. Madison knew that healing is an ongoing journey, not a final destination. There would be days when old doubts whispered at the edges of her mind, or when memories of betrayal cast long shadows at dusk. Yet she had armed herself with the knowledge that honesty, communication, and compassion are twin lights that can guide her through any darkness. With every truthful conversation, every open calendar entry, and every act of kindness toward Spencer, toward Vivian, toward herself, she reaffirmed a new standard for love and family. In the weeks that followed, Madison enrolled Riley in a parent-child music class at the community center, sharing laughter with other families from Oak Ridge. She returned to her accounting work with renewed focus, grateful for the financial independence she'd carved out. She opened her heart to new friendships, neighbors who welcomed her with warm smiles and baking swaps. Through it all, she carried the wisdom of those harrowing months, grounded by the promise to choose integrity over ease. One evening, as Riley drifted into sleep beside her on the porch swing, Madison caught sight of Spencer's silhouette in the distance, gently rocking him in his arms during a supervised visit. Their eyes met across the yard, and Madison offered a small, genuine wave, a gesture of peace. Spencer nodded, gratitude and respect shining in his gaze. In that shared moment, they acknowledged how far they had come. From broken trust to a partnership forged by honesty and anchored in a shared love for their child. Madison closed her eyes, the cool breeze rustling the oaks overhead. She had learned that family happiness is not a gift but a responsibility, a daily choice to honor the hearts we've been entrusted with. She felt the quiet satisfaction of a promise kept. To protect Riley, to speak truth with kindness, and to nurture love not only in her son's laughter but in every deliberate word and action that shaped their new, resilient family. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of forgiveness and hope, Madison knew that this final lesson, fidelity through transparency, communication through respect, and happiness through collective compassion, would guide her long after the last leaf had fallen. And that brings us to the end of today's story on TrueStory Vibes. Don't forget to leave a comment with a quote or moment that touched you the most. Your words give our team the motivation to keep creating more heartfelt stories. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you again soon.